Beloved, even before you finished reading the title of this video, something inside you already recognized that this message was prepared especially for you, because there is a part of your being that already knows, already feels, already perceived that not all the people around you are where they seem to be. You arrived here because your spirit was guided, because there was something greater than your own curiosity operating in the moment this video appeared on your screen, and I need you to understand one thing before any other word. What you are about to hear is not a coincidence, it is not chance, it is not simply the algorithm of a platform doing its work. What is happening in this exact instant is a divine alignment, and you were chosen to be here because the message that will be revealed throughout this video was directed to your heart before you were even born. There is something that very few people have the courage to speak about openly, something that most prefer to ignore because it is more comfortable to live in illusion than to face the truth that hurts. And that truth is this: not every smile you receive is genuine. Not every hand extended in your direction carries pure intention, and not every person who says they are by your side truly desires to see you grow, flourish, and become everything you were called to be. There are people who are in your life at this exact moment who still this year will show you who they really are, and heaven has already revealed the signs, already deposited the warnings within you, already placed in your hands everything you need to recognize who these people are before the betrayal reaches you by surprise. But before we continue, if this video is already touching your heart, if you feel that this message was prepared for you, take this moment right now to subscribe to this channel, leave your like, and comment below the word Amen, because your Amen in this moment is not just engagement on a digital platform. It is your spiritual declaration that you are ready to receive the truth, that you are willing to see beyond appearances, and that you trust that what has been prepared for your life is greater than any betrayal could ever destroy. So subscribe, leave your like, and comment Amen right now, and stay with me until the end of this video, because what is still to come will completely change the way you see the people around you. There is an ancient wisdom that chosen ones carry within themselves since the very beginning, a capacity that goes far beyond common intelligence, that transcends the logic the world teaches in schools and academies. And this wisdom is the ability to feel what the eyes cannot yet see, to perceive what words have not yet spoken, to recognize the truth of a person before they even have time to build the perfect disguise around themselves. You have probably already lived this before. You have already entered an environment and felt something uncomfortable without being able to explain exactly why. You have already looked into someone's eyes and noticed that there was something behind that smile that did not correspond to the reality being presented. And instead of trusting that perception, you silenced it, because the world teaches that suspicion is ugly, that judging is wrong, that you should give the benefit of the doubt until proof appears before your eyes. But what happens when the proof arrives too late? When you have already opened your heart, already shared your dreams, already trusted your secrets, already offered your loyalty to someone who was using all of that as fuel to destroy what you spent years building. When the betrayal reveals itself not as a distant possibility, but as a concrete and painful reality that you could have avoided if you had paid attention to the signs that were placed in your path with much more advance notice than you imagine. This is exactly what we need to talk about today, because the spirit that dwells in you never lies, never makes mistakes, never fails to send the warnings, and the difference between those who are destroyed by betrayal and those who survive it, whole, lies in the capacity to hear what the Spirit is saying before it is too late. Chosen ones go through a very specific season before any great revelation arrives in their lives, a season that from the outside looks like silence, that from the inside feels like abandonment, that in the most difficult moments feels like punishment, but that in reality is the most sacred period of an entire chosen person's journey, because it is exactly in this silence that the spirit is fine-tuned, that perception sharpens, that the eyes of the heart learn to see what the eyes of the face would never be capable of seeing. You went through this, you know this season. You survived this silence, and now the moment has come to use everything that was developed within you in this phase to recognize with absolute clarity who around you is being used against your destiny and who was genuinely sent to walk by your side. If you wish to connect more deeply with your spirituality and develop even further this capacity for discernment that we are talking about throughout this video, the ebook On the Path with Jesus can completely transform your journey. This ebook contains 60 days of prayer, learning, and real changes in your life, with divine teachings to live with purpose, to prosper in every area, and to have a spiritual experience so deep and so true that it will be impossible to describe with words. This edition is available for a limited time only, and the link is in the first comment right below. Do not leave it for later. There is a pattern that repeats in the lives of practically all chosen ones before a great betrayal manifests, and this pattern is so predictable, so constant, so clearly identifiable when you learn to recognize it, that after you hear what I am about to tell you now, you will never again be able to look at certain behaviors without immediately understanding what they mean and where they are pointing. The first sign is the sensation of discomfort that appears without apparent reason. When you are in the presence of a certain person, a subtle tension that runs through your body, even when everything around seems normal, even when the conversation is calm, even when that person is smiling and being kind to you, because your spirit has already perceived something that your mind is still refusing to process. And this discomfort is the most honest warning you will receive before anything happens. The second sign is the inconsistency between what a person says and what they do when they think you are not paying attention. Those small contradictions that appear on the edges of coexistence, in stories that do not quite add up, in reactions that do not match what was said, in moments when someone's behavior shifts subtly depending on who is present in the room, and that reveal, to those who have eyes trained to see, that there is a public version and a private version of that person, and the version you are seeing is not necessarily the real one. Chosen ones have an extraordinary sensitivity for catching these inconsistencies, and the problem is not that you do not notice them. The problem is that you have a heart so generous and a faith so great in human goodness that you spend your entire lives finding justifications for behaviors that should be raising red flags. The third sign is perhaps the most powerful and the most ignored of all, and it manifests in your dreams, in your sudden intuitions, in the physical sensations that appear without rational explanation, in the way your body reacts to certain situations before your mind has time to analyze anything. Because the spirit communicates through channels that go far beyond verbal language and logical reasoning. And when you wake up in the middle of the night with your heart racing, thinking about a certain person without knowing exactly why, when you feel a tightening in your chest in a moment that should be joyful, when an inner voice insists on warning you about something your mind is still trying to convince itself does not exist, do not ignore it, do not rationalize it, do not minimize it, because this is the most precious moment of all your spiritual protection, and wasting it can cost a price much higher than you are willing to pay. Now has come the most important moment of this video, the moment you have been waiting for since the instant the title caught your attention, because the truth is that the Spirit has already revealed, already shown, already delivered into your hands all the elements necessary for you to identify. Before it is too late, who are the people who still this year will show you their true face? And this revelation does not come in the form of a name written in letters of fire in the sky. It comes in the form of behavioral patterns, relational dynamics, feelings that you have been ignoring for months or even years because it seemed safer not to face the truth. The first category of people that chosen ones need to recognize and watch very carefully are those who never genuinely celebrate your achievements, who show up in full force during your moments of difficulty, who know exactly what to say when you are falling, but who become strangely quiet, strangely distant, strangely busy when something extraordinary happens in your life, because a person who truly loves you cannot hide their joy when you advance. They overflow along with you. They vibrate. With your growth, they feel the reflection of your victories in their own heart. And when this does not happen, when you notice that someone's presence in your life is conditioned on your vulnerability and absent in your strength, you need to understand that this dynamic is not love, it is a dependence on your failure. The second category is the people who know your dreams, but never miss an opportunity to question your ability to realize them, who frame their doubts as genuine concern, who disguise their pessimism with the veil of realism, who say they are protecting you when in reality they are feeding your fear and keeping you exactly where you are, so that you never surpass them. because there is a very uncomfortable truth that few are willing to admit. Some people around chosen ones want them close not because they love them, but because the chosen one's presence makes them feel superior, and the chosen one's growth directly threatens the fragile sense of value these people have built on constant comparison. The third category, and perhaps the most painful of all, is the people who were present in your most vulnerable moments, who heard your deepest secrets, who witnessed your most exposed wounds, who were witnesses to your most intimate pain, and who hold all of that not as a sacred treasure of the trust that was placed in them, but as ammunition that can be used the moment interests diverge, the moment envy transforms into something that can no longer be contained, the moment the need to diminish, the other surpasses any loyalty that once existed between you. These people are the most difficult to identify because they were genuine at some point, because there was real love in the beginning, because the betrayal was not planned from the start. It grew silently while you were growing. And the more you advanced, the more their wound increased, until it reached a point where the only way they could feel good about themselves was by harming you. Now I need to tell you something that will completely change the perspective with which you are looking at all of this, because up to this point in the video I have talked about signs, about patterns, about people who may betray you, and you may be feeling a growing weight inside your chest, a distrust that begins to set in, a fear that was not there before you started watching. But I need you to take a deep breath now and understand that the message being delivered to you in this video is not a message of fear. It is a message of protection. And there is a fundamental difference between the two that will determine what you will do with everything you learned here today. Fear paralyzes you, makes you shrink, leads you to closed doors, isolates you behind walls that promise safety, but that in reality imprison you together with your own insecurities, while divine protection opens your eyes without hardening your heart, gives you discernment without robbing you of the capacity to love, teaches you to recognize danger without turning every person around you into a potential threat. Because chosen ones were not called to live in constant distrust, they were called to live in wisdom. And there is an ocean of difference between distrusting everyone and having the discernment to recognize who genuinely belongs in your life and who is merely passing through, or worse, passing through with the intention to destroy. What the Spirit revealed about the betrayals that are still to come in your life was not revealed to fill you with anxiety, but to give you time, to give you space, to give you the opportunity to position yourself correctly before the impact arrives. Because there is something that people who have never been chosen cannot understand. Chosen ones are never destroyed by the betrayals they face. They are transformed by them. They emerge from each one with a more elevated version of themselves, with a clarity that did not exist before, with a strength that can only be developed by crossing exactly the kind of pain that a betrayal produces when it happens to someone who loved truly and was met with falsehood. But there is an enormous difference between being transformed by a betrayal that catches you by surprise and being spiritually prepared to cross it with your peace intact, with your faith unshakable, with your capacity to keep loving preserved. And it is exactly this preparation that is happening with you now in this exact moment, as you watch this video and feel something awakening within you that was not awakened before. Because the Spirit not only warns, it also strengthens, it also equips, it also positions the chosen one exactly where they need to be so that when the betrayal comes, it is not capable of stealing what they were called to build. There is a moment that every chosen one eventually faces, a moment that can last just a few seconds or can extend over days and weeks of internal processing. And this is the moment when the betrayal stops being a suspicion and becomes a concrete and undeniable reality before your eyes. And how you respond in that moment will determine not only how much you will suffer, but mainly how much you will grow. Because the response of chosen ones in the face of betrayal is one of the most powerful demonstrations of character that a human being can offer to the world. The first thing you need to do when the betrayal reveals itself is not to act, not to confront, not to seek revenge, not to spread the truth or try to destroy whoever tried to destroy you. The first thing you need to do is to feel. Because chosen ones have a very dangerous pattern of using their spiritual strength to skip stages of grief that are absolutely necessary for complete healing. of preaching forgiveness to themselves before even giving their own heart the time and space necessary to process the magnitude of what happened. And a forgiveness that is born before grief is not liberation, it is suppression. And what is suppressed does not disappear. It only goes to a deeper place from which it will continue causing damage in ways that you cannot always clearly identify. After you have allowed yourself to feel, the second thing chosen ones need to do in the face of a betrayal is ask the most important and most difficult question of all. And this question is not what did this person do to me, nor how will I recover from what happened, nor what will I do now that I know the truth. The most important question is, what is this experience trying to teach me about myself, about my limits, about my vulnerabilities, about the points where my need for connection made me blind to the signs that were being sent with absolute clarity, and about what I need to develop internally so that this pattern does not repeat itself in the next relationship I build, because the betrayal that is not understood in its deepest truth is the betrayal that repeats itself in different faces and different contexts throughout a person's entire life. The third thing, and the most powerful of all, is the capacity to use your experience of betrayal as a source of compassion and not bitterness, to let your pain transform into wisdom that you share with others, to allow your story of survival to become a beacon for people who are still in the middle of darkness, without being able to see that there is a way out, because chosen ones do not go through what they go through only for themselves. Every experience, every pain, every betrayal, every new beginning is raw material for the greater purpose that was deposited in the life of every person who was selected to carry a different light in this world. Now has come the moment for me to tell you the most important truth of this entire video, the truth that all the others were preparing your heart to receive, and this truth is so simple that it may seem too small to be the central point of everything, but I promise you that when you truly absorb the weight of what I'm about to say now, your perspective on everything that is happening in your life will transform in a way that will be impossible to reverse. No betrayal has the power to deviate your destiny when you remain rooted in who you are, when you refuse to let pain transform your heart into stone, when you choose, every day and consciously, to remain open to what is still to come even after having been wounded by what has already passed, because the destiny of chosen ones is not determined by the number of betrayals they faced, but by the quality of the character they demonstrated in every moment of adversity, by the depth of the faith they maintained when all the evidence pointed to abandonment, by the consistency with which they continued advancing even when their legs were tired and their heart was heavy, and the inner voice that should have been encouraging was silent for a time too long to be comfortable. You were chosen not despite everything you have already crossed, but because of everything you have already crossed, because the same experiences that tried to break you were the ones that shaped you, the ones that developed within you a capacity for perception, a depth of character, a richness of soul that people who have never gone through anything similar simply do not possess. And this richness, this refinement, this extraordinary capacity that was developed within you through every difficult season is exactly what will attract to your life the right people, the genuine connections, the relationships that will not betray you because they were built on a foundation of truth, of mutual respect, of recognition of the value each one carries, of a love that does not need to disguise itself because it has nothing to hide. The people who will betray you still this year do not have the power to destroy what is being built for you. They only have the power to reveal what did not deserve to be in your path, to clear the space that needs to be freed so that what is genuine can finally settle in, to show you with a painful but necessary clarity where the gaps were that needed to be closed, the limits that needed to be established, the old versions of yourself that needed to be left behind once and for all, so that the version that was called to a greater purpose could emerge completely and without impediments. And when you arrive on the other side of these betrayals, when the dust settles and the clarity comes, and you can look at what happened with the eyes of someone who survived and grew, and not of someone who is still inside the pain, you will understand, with a certainty that will not need any external confirmation, that every person who left your life, every bond that broke, every disappointment you crossed, was part of a much larger, much more intelligent, much more loving plan than your human mind would be capable of conceiving or planning on its own. Beloved, you have made it here, And I need you to understand what that means, because in a world that constantly fights for your attention, that offers distraction at every corner, that makes it increasingly difficult to stop and listen to something that goes beyond surface entertainment, the fact that you have stayed until this moment, that you have received everything that was shared here, that you have allowed this message to find your heart where it truly was and not where you would like to pretend it was, that is not small. That is an act of spiritual courage that will produce fruit in your life in ways you cannot yet fully imagine. Now, before we close, I want to ask you something different. I'm not only going to ask you to subscribe and leave your like, although I need you to do that because this channel was created to be a space for real growth, for messages that transform, for truths that liberate, and every subscription, every like, every comment helps this message reach more people who need to hear exactly what you heard today. So please, if you have not subscribed yet, do it now. Leave your like and comment below. The word Amen as your declaration that you received this message, that you are ready to see with clarity, that you choose to move forward with wisdom and not with fear. But beyond that, I want to ask you to stay for just one more moment before you leave here, not to rush off to the next stimulus, to take a deep breath and allow the love that was present in every word of this video to still resonate within you for a few more instants, because there is a presence that accompanied you throughout this entire journey today, a presence that was here before you clicked on this video and that will continue here after you close this screen, a presence that knows every betrayal you have already lived, every tear you shed in silence, every night when you wondered if it was still worth continuing to trust, every moment of doubt and fear and exhaustion that you tried to hide from everyone, because chosen ones sometimes believe that showing the weight is a sign of weakness, when in reality it is a sign of the depth of what they carry. Feel that presence now, feel the love it has for you, a love that did not diminish in the face of your failures, a love that did not grow smaller when you made wrong decisions, a love that did not withdraw when you no longer had the strength to keep the faith burning, because this love is constant. It is unshakable. It is more real than any betrayal you have ever faced or will yet face, and it is exactly from this love that all protection, all discernment, all wisdom that was shared with you throughout this video emanates, because you were not brought here by accident. You were guided by hands that know your name, that know your destiny, that know the ending of the story that is still being written, and that ending was prepared for you with a care that goes far beyond anything you have ever been capable of imagining for yourself. Go in peace, beloved. Go with wisdom. Go with discernment. Go with your heart open to what is genuine, and with eyes trained to recognize what does not belong to your destiny. Your story does not end here. It continues, and what is to come is greater than everything that was left behind. Until the next video.